So, welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. In case you don't know me, I'm Anastasia Markvarde. I'm head of Eir Accelerator that we're presenting today. But together with that, I'm also a women's health advocate and an expert in women's health innovation based here in Finland. Even if I'm sure you joined today not to hear from me, but to hear from Jessica, that will take over very, very soon after my short intro. Let me just explain what we're going to do today. So today is not a Q&A. Today is the announcement of our program. So it's the very first international session that we are hosting for all of us. So the idea today is to go through the program, explain what we're going to do here, explain why it's important and why this initiative is so cool, and give you tips on how to apply and when to apply. After this, we will host dedicated webinars with startups during summer via Zoom. So there you will be able to ask your questions in detail and we can answer and we can advise better in terms of your application. Well, I think today for the plan is that Jessica introduces a little bit more the context around women's health and shares more about this initiative, why it's important, and then I will go into details, share the presentation, and give you all the details needed for you to know to apply for this program. So without further ado, Jessica, please take over the stage. I'm really excited to have you with us, and I'm not embarrassed to admit that when Jessica agreed to support our program and come to Finland in person, I was literally jumping in my apartment. So that how this really means a lot to the program, but also to the women's health scene in Finland in general. And I'm really sure that we're going to do a lot of great things together. So please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. And thank you for the incredible amount of hard work and time and passion you've put into making this announcement come to reality today. I'm Jessica Federer. It's really a pleasure to be here with you today. My background is in big pharma. I was the chief digital officer for Bayer. I lived in Germany for about 10 years. And of course, I was the first female chief digital officer for the global pharmaceutical industry. So I've been at the forefront of technology in big pharma for years. And what I really love about women's health is that it is the most exciting area for scientific advancement in our lifetimes. And so today I'm just going to talk about three simple things and then pass it back so that you can hear more about how to apply to be part of this program. We're going to talk about what is women's health? Why now? Why now for women's health? And then what can you do and how can you be a part of it? So let's start with what is women's health? So women's health is any area that disproportionately, differently, or exclusively impacts women. And so differently, disproportionately, and exclusively, that's the NIH National Institute of Health definition. And that brings in some pretty interesting areas. If you think about how women are 80% of autoimmune patients, 80. So we would consider autoimmune a women's health area. Neuro conditions are very much disproportionately impacting women. If you think about postpartum depression, or 40% of women in perimenopause going through some type of depression as the chemicals in their brain and hormones in their brain change. And then, of course, even heart disease counts as women's health because heart disease is the leading killer of women. And there's still so much that we need to do to be able to have the right diagnostics, because heart attacks in women look very different than in men, and also the right screening tools. You know, most women today still don't know that you can see signs of heart disease on your mammogram. You can see breast arterial calcification. So mammograms, which women are very good and compliant at getting, mammograms can show these breast arterial calcifications, which are a signal that you want to go get your heart checked out. So this is a really big space, women's health. And to make it even more interesting, the science around it has just started to boom. And the reason it hasn't before is because we didn't allow women in clinical trials in the United States until 1993. 1993 is the year that the movie Jurassic Park came out, if you remember Jurassic Park, or the movie Groundhog Day, if that's more your style. So we only recently allowed women back in clinical trials in the US. And that was 1993 was just for federally funded NIH studies. So it still took a really long time before we started to study women appropriately. And the FDA just this last December, so not very long ago, just in December of 2025, put out a draft guidance on how to power studies to see differences in sex. Again, this is the first time we're doing this. So the FDA just put out the draft guidance in December. And this is really meaningful because we know women respond differently to drugs and to treatments. We know women have up to 2 times the rate of side effects from medication compared to men. So it's really important that we start to understand women's health better. So that's a little bit of the what is women's health. Now let's talk about why now. Why women's health now? Why are you seeing women's health everywhere? This old term, women's health, that sounds like it's been around forever. Why are you hearing so much about it? And the reason, as I started with, it is the most exciting area for scientific advancement in our lifetime because it's low-hanging fruit. We just didn't study women because they weren't allowed in studies. And we defaulted to male cells, male mice, males and first in man. And that was our baseline. And so now, as we're starting to follow the science is showing us that because every single cell in your body has a sex, every single cell has an XX or XY or one of the other combinations of X and Y which exist. Um, every cell has a sex and they respond differently and they're not behaving the same way. And so we're starting to look at how those cells react differently. We're also starting to understand better for the first time that women's second X chromosome, the one formerly known as silent. I don't know about you all, but in school I was taught the second X chromosome is just silent. It's inactive. And at the time, we believed that to be true. And it is inactive, but it escapes inactivation. And a lot of the genes escape inactivation. And we are truly just now starting to understand what genes escape inactivation, why, how, what do they do? This is brand new science. This is really exciting. And it may help us understand why women are 80% of autoimmune patients because a lot of your immune genes, you've got thousands on the X chromosome, 100 or so on the Y chromosome. If your second X chromosome escapes inactivity, then you've got a double whammy of immune genes. And that may help us understand why women are so disproportionately impacted by autoimmune conditions. So again, brand new science. Now talking about some really practical new innovations. It was only, actually, I'll ask you all, what year do you think was the first year we saw how pregnancy changed a woman's brain? Good question, right? When I ask it to students at universities, they're always guessing around the times that we first got MRIs and PET scans and CAT scans. The year we first saw what pregnancy does to a woman's brain was 2024. So very recent. We saw the plasticity, how the gray matter changes, really interesting changes. And it was just very recently. Now, the second one that's a great example is what year did we first see how an embryo implants in a uterus? That seems pretty basic. Without that, there is no life. We did not understand how an embryo implants in the uterus and see how that happens until last year, 2025. So if you're looking at areas where there's a huge opportunity for scientific advancement that can translate into meaningful diagnostics, treatments, and cures, women's health is fascinating. Now, if we look at the market numbers, let's take the most profitable category of the most profitable industry in the world, which is what? GLP-1s. That is driven by women. So women are driving the most profitable category of the most profitable industry in the world. And that's really exciting investors because they're starting to wonder, if we didn't see the sex-based difference and plan on it there, where else might we not be seeing the value of sex-based differences? And so we're starting to see a greater interest and a brand new enthusiasm and excitement coming from the big industries and the pharma players because they see the tremendous opportunity to make a difference for female patients. And we know, of course, women are leading the healthcare decisions in their home. They're leading the healthcare spending for their family. They're also leading a lot of the spending decisions for their family. And so we need to focus on keeping them healthy and contributing to society. Now, we've talked about what is women's health. Why is it exciting now? Now let's talk about what you can do. There's so much that you personally can do to help be part of this new, growing, exciting area with new science, new investments, new diagnostics, treatments, and cures that is women's health. So the easiest way to start is amplify the message. So if you're interested in learning more, obviously Anastasia is a great source of information, but also the McKinsey reports. A few years ago, McKinsey started putting out these women's health reports talking about what is the real market size, what is the real potential, how much money is being left on the table by not focusing on women's health sooner. Because women right now, we know that it takes them so much longer to get diagnosed. They have to do many more doctor's visits to get diagnosed. And they're less likely to stay on the treatment and have so many refills because they're prioritizing their family and other investment decisions. So, for getting women more active and better treated, we get the better outcomes, but it's also a lot of growth in the market. So these McKinsey reports are phenomenal. Now, there's a lot of other great information from reputable sources, and this is the piece where I would encourage you to be optimistic but critical. Because it's such a new space, there is really a lack of information. And this is why what we're talking about today is so important. So, anyone that comes to you with a clear answer and says, oh, AI can help us solve this, or we've got a solution for that, really be critical and check the evidence because there has been a lack of data. There has been a lack of studies. So we are truly missing a lot of the information that is needed. AI can't solve these problems because the basic data doesn't exist yet. The basic science hasn't happened yet. And so we really need to invest in these fundamentals to build the market. Now, the exciting news here is that we we're really just putting the lens on a population we haven't studied before on women. So it's not like cell and gene therapy, which is an incredibly exciting space as well. I mean, curing disease is everyone's goal. But in cell and gene therapy, you're waiting on manufacturing to scale. You're waiting on big, expensive equipment and advanced technologies to scale. Here in women's health, we're not waiting on anything to scale. We don't need new technology. We just need to put women into the lens. We need to better understand everything about how having two X chromosomes in a cell makes a difference. We need to understand what cells are escaping inactivation on those X chromosomes. We need to understand how hormones change and what the baseline is. This is fascinating to me that hormones play such an important role in our bodies. And we have no baseline for hormones on women, really none. So if you're looking at, well, not none, I'm talking to scientists here. We have very poor data on hormones in women. So if you're trying to look at how hormones fluctuate, what is abnormal or normal, that's really hard for us to tell because most clinical trials don't collect cycle data and they don't collect hormone data. And they certainly don't collect it continuously, which is what we would really need to see differences. There are areas where we've started to understand it. So with postpartum depression, and I had the honor of serving on the board at Sage Therapeutics, where we launched the treatment for postpartum depression. We know that during pregnancy, the hormone levels in your brain go to 100 times what they usually are. 100 times, can you imagine? And then you give birth and they drop. So we're starting to understand specific instances of hormone changes. But again, it's still very early days. So if you're here, you're probably curious about women's health. You probably understand some of these challenges. You know that this is a space where you can build a career. You can make scientific advancements that change the world and scale. You can help millions of women around the world that have just been neglected. You can help us close the gap. It shouldn't take 10 years to get an endometriosis diagnosis in the United States. 10 years. Can you imagine all those doctor's visits, all the unknown? It shouldn't be the case that women are dying of ovarian cancer because currently the way to diagnose ovarian cancer is to remove a fallopian tube and an ovary. We should have better, faster, more accessible diagnostics and treatments for women for these very different conditions. So, what can you do? Get involved, focus on women's health in the research that you're doing, even if it's not specifically in a women's health area. Make sure you're using male and female cells and male and female mice, and you're powering your studies to see differences in women. That's really important. Make sure that you're seeking out new information. And when someone's not talking about women's health, when they're publishing data, when they're not stratifying by sex, when they're not showing you how women's side effects are different, please ask. If we start asking the questions of companies and asking the questions of providers, we'll start to show how important it is to gather this data and what it means for our health. And then as you're learning, amplify that data. Amplify what you're learning. So many people today still don't know that women weren't included in clinical trials till 1993. That's shocking for a lot of people. And so the more we talk about it and the more we amplify and share and make it mainstream, the more progress we can make together. So women's health is never about being in a lane, in a women's health niche. Women's health is about mainstreaming and saying that for every single condition, whether it's autoimmune, neuro, musculoskeletal, cardiometabolic, for all of those conditions, we are considering the sex-based differences and we're powering our studies to understand those sex-based differences. And that's really the exciting piece here is how often do you get to be at the forefront of a truly new field that can change the world? Every single life on the planet comes out of women's health. It is a wonderful place to invest your time and your energy and your resources if you want to do well and do good. This is a fantastic space. So I'm particularly grateful to Anastasia because this program is just so practical. This is a program that, thank you, Finland. I want every single country to follow this model. If you look at economies, if you look at falling birth rates, if you look at the challenges to women's health, the productivity loss from women having 25% worse health than their male outcomes over time throughout their careers, this is an investment that we all need to be making. And so huge congratulations to Anastasia and the team in Finland for making this real. So please apply to be part of the program. Please also come join us at Slush. We're going to have a special session that has been arranged on November 18th. I will be honored to be there. I'm joining, and I look forward to seeing all of you there. And then, wherever you go, bring someone else along. If you can, bring a man with you. We need men to get excited about women's health too. Bring investors. Investors have so much to gain from getting in early on a field that's just been overlooked. That's the dream scenario. So this is just a really outstanding program. It's something special. It's something unique. And again, I hope every country ends up following the lead that we're going to hear about today. So thank you for having me. Thank you for listening and learning a little bit about what is women's health and why is it important now. And thank you for being part of the solution.
Thank you so much, Jessica. That was so inspirational and so powerful. I'm afraid that even some people that joined us today just, to spend time, they might be already wanting to build in women's health after this. So,
Good. Welcome to the
uh,
club. Come on over.
yeah, that's been a perfect start to our program. Thank you so much. And there is not too much to share anymore, but still, I will try. So again, let me just share the deck here. All right. So, yeah, welcome to the future of women's health. After this fantastic intro by Jessica, I'll just spend 5 minutes introducing the big picture, the objectives of the program, what we're going to do. And then, as mentioned, we will have separate Zoom sessions to deal with Q&A, where you will be able to answer more questions or get your questions asked. So, we are building the next generation of women's health innovation, and we chose Finland to do that, but also our program is truly global. Um, this is another notification about today's announcement, but other than that, of course, our first mission is to help founders. We know that great founders exist, but we also know that it's very hard to build startups. It's even harder to build startups in health tech. It's even harder and harder and harder to build startups in women's health. As you know, reimbursement pathways are not designed for women's health. The issue is really underfunded, and also many shocking things prevent founders from driving revenue. For example, the recent study published in Forbes, referenced in Forbes, was saying that reimbursement codes in the US reimburse from 30 up to 150% less on female reimbursement codes for the same disease than male. So this is actually crazy. That's why we bring the best people to help founders. But also, we know that in order to really succeed and to really strive, we need to build an ecosystem. That's why we also have best investors on board and best partners on board, and we deliver value to all of them. And we act basically as a platform on women's health, global and international, based in Finland, uh, in order to produce value there. So why we're more than accelerator? We are focused specifically on women's health, and as you will see, most of our mentors have women's health expertise, and those who don't contribute with other relevant expertise. We will definitely focus on matchmaking between investors that we have in the program, between the startups and between the partners that I will share just in a little while. That's why we kind of build for all the sides of this ecosystem, even if, again, the priority is to help startups. This has been covered, I think, but Finland is really a great place to build. We have fantastic data. We have all the data in one place. We have more than 10 biobanks, and we are bringing them on board. We have startup-friendly conditions and some grants and clinical access. So we are working in order to help you with that as well. Why you should apply. We will definitely bring the best women's health expertise. We will connect you to investors and kind of plug you into the women's health ecosystem and venture ecosystem. We will cover all kinds of aspects that you need to succeed and to scale your venture. And finally, we really focus on collaboration, as I mentioned, between yourself and between all the institutions. But I think that you will not believe me unless I show you real people behind this. So those are just some of the mentors that we have. And as you can see, they're all leaders from either Finland or global organizations. And we have technology and AI leaders. We have hospital leaders, for example, Mount Sinai. We have hospitals and like New Children's Hospital from Finland, foundations, companies like Bayer, and innovators, for example, like Mira in hormone tracking or OnBody in neuroscience stimulation and so on. And of course, we have Jessica. That's why by joining, you will be able to get support from these people. But not just that. So together with mentorship, you will get investor visibility. We don't have an assigned ticket that we give you when you apply to the program, but we have a community of investors that will review your application. And in case they're interested, they will handle this case by case. We actually think that this is an advantage because previously I did run a couple of accelerator programs, and usually the ticket that is offered is quite small. So that's quite limiting as far as the range of companies that you can accept. We also know that due to all the challenges in women's health, we can actually accept companies of a very broad range, from basically spinouts to quite a pre-seed seed companies, just because we have these top mentors and because we don't have this limitation of the ticket. You're able to be visible and to get your story shaped, and you're able also to have the community support, which I think is like really important in women's health. What are we looking for? So, thanks a lot, Jessica, for explaining what is women's health. And I'm pretty sure that most of you here know, but just to say it once again, anything is women's health. All health is women's health. So we don't focus just on fertility, menopause, or maternal care, even if those are very important topics, but we focus on anything that affects women disproportionately or differently, from science-based and deep tech ventures to more consumer side or wellness side. The program is free and there is no equity taken. And again, if you agree to take investment from our investor partners, this will be handled separately. That's why we offer this flexibility of towards which startups we want to accept. And again, I think we can deliver real value for very early stage, but also for someone who already has product on the market, or at least some version of the product on the market, because again, we're here to help you scale. And we will definitely connect you to some of the coolest investors in women's health. And uh, we have a really wide network of partners. We are onboarding them as we speak. So those are just a couple of partners that we've been able to get the logo from and approve it before the launch. But believe me, more and more of them will be added to the website very, very soon. And I'm really proud of our investor supporters. Again, those are the first ones, and there will be more added. But we have Finnish-based investors. We have European-based investors, we have US-based investors. They all have track record in investing in women's health and investors supporting us, especially by helping us to review our application and helping us to host the side event at Slush. We're also part of broader collective. So again, we're based in Finland. We're accepting global applications, but not only that, we also help you to connect to global actors in the field. We're part of Milken that has 170 organizations under their network, and we're part of Femtech Across Borders, where we have more than 70 countries in this collective. So again, if you join the program, you get access to a really global network of these organizations. And finally, a really big deal for Finland. We're gonna kick off the program at Slush. As you know, or as you might not know, Slush is one of the biggest and coolest conferences on tech and startups in Europe. 12,000 people come to Helsinki every November, the shittiest weather possible, but the conference is so good that these people still come. There are charter flights from San Francisco to Helsinki in November. Big names like Atomico, Sequoia, they are all there, General Atlantic, and more and more events that take place at Slush are focused on health tech. We will be either the first and the only or one of the very few events on women's health at Slush. So this will give you, of course, extra visibility, extra networking, and the possibility to get to know the Slush spirit in Helsinki. So as far as the timeline, the applications are open now. You can apply through the website. We will be reviewing them over summer, getting interviews with the companies in September, October, and by November we will kick off. So if you're ready, and I think you really must be ready after all these presentations, please do apply. If you're founder in women's health, please apply through the website. The applications are open. It's very easy to do that. And you can also go to our chatbot and ask some questions if you're unsure. But if you're unsure, just apply because anyhow, your application will be seen by all our partners and investors. So even if you're, for example, not a fit for this year, or if you're too early, you might be as well a really good fit for next year because, of course, we plan to continue with this program on a yearly basis. But also, if you're excited about the field and you just discovered that this is such an amazing opportunity that you might be missing, and you're an investor or a partner and want to collaborate with us, please scan this and please reach out to us. We are, as I mentioned, really actively onboarding partners, collaborators, ecosystem partners, supporters, hospitals, patient associations, and so on. So we are really happy to talk. I think that's it for today. Wow, we had 80 participants joining us on Zoom, and I'm pretty sure many more people watching us online on LinkedIn. So I think that's a lot for the first announcement. We've also announced the program in Finland just a few days ago, and we've already received 35 applications from the startup. So we are really honored, and we are really happy to see this kind of interest. That's why, again, please hold your questions. With the questions, you will be able to come to our Zoom webinars that will be announced sooner, and we will get them answered. Thank you so much, everyone. Jessica, would you like to add anything else before we
No.
wrap this up?
Thank you all for being here, for being part of this. We're not leaving it to the next generation. We are solving this together.
Yes, definitely we will, and excited to have so many participants from so many different corners of the world. Please apply, please reach out to us, and really hope that this 30 minutes you spent to us were really useful for you today. Thank you, everyone.